Hi everyone, it's Amanda here from Northern Value Creators. I wanted to share some of the observations of the work that we've been doing with our clients. I also wanted to talk a little bit about the neuroscience of what's going on for our people and how coaching credits can help. I'm going to be about 10 minutes, I think, so grab a cup of tea, get yourself comfy, and hopefully this is going to be really, really useful for you. So I think at this point in time, it's one of the most challenging times for business owners, and that the things that we need to think about and do and change and deal with has been absolutely huge. But the problem we have is that the humans in our teams are tired, they're stressed, they're triggered, and they're struggling with uncertainty. And I've had quite a few clients come to me and say, Amanda, what's going on with me? Why am I not thinking the way I normally think? Or why are my team behaving how they do? So I wanted to give you a little bit of the neuroscience just to bring some of that to life for you and to understand what's going on. So our brain is wired to keep us alive and to keep us safe, and it's really, really good at it. So we have lots of routines that we use to save our energy and keep us safe. We have a way of kind of seeing and looking at the world where we see the negatives so that we can protect ourselves against those, and we see threats everywhere. And what's that meant in calmer times is that our brain is responding to kind of social threats and to social pain in the same way that we would with physical pain. So all of the research that came out from Google about the best teams are the ones that work in a way that builds psychological safety. So it's about the how, not the who. It's all around that space of how our brains react to others. And this is really useful in a steady state and a steady system. But at the moment, we have also got the threat of physical safety. So I thought it was really helpful to just go through what happens to our brain when we are triggered by fear of pain, both physical and psychological. So for those of you who haven't seen it, if you imagine my hand is a model of the brain, our amygdala is that threat detection system. So when the amygdala is activated, it floods our brain with cortisol. And what that does is it shuts off access to our prefrontal cortex. Now, our prefrontal cortex is the area of our brain that does problem solving, creative thinking, and all of that sort of planning and very sort of higher functioning levels of activity. So when you can't access that, you are left in a more emotional and reactive state. So just to kind of give you a list of a sense of what your brain is like when it's triggered, you are unable to think more broadly. You don't have access to the thinking center of your brain. You have tunnel vision, which actually means that when you're working in projects and working with others, your ability to perceive things is narrowed. So you actually miss things that are right in front of you. You become very suspicious of everything. You move into conflict and protection mode. So in this space, I don't want to share with you. I don't want to cooperate with you. I don't want to do projects with you. I also am fearful of control because I've lost it. So I'm doing my best to kind of rein some of that back in. Our ability to make great decisions, to problem solve, to have insights and new ideas is all diminishing as our brain struggles to kind of create and collaborate in this protection mode. We are also far more reactive, far more sensitive to things. We're perceiving greater negativity than is there. And as I said, we really can't see what's in front of us. So for some of us, we are still in this flipped state of really struggling to see what's there in this protection mode and being slightly more hostile and negative than we would normally be. For others of us, we may be coming out of this space. And when you've had a surge of cortisol, you then move into something kind of known as a flop state. And in that state, you have very low energy, your brain is a bit foggy, and it really impairs your thinking. And this is you kind of going internal and processing the trauma, the loss, the change that has happened. And when you think about sort of tales of people who in that surge of cortisol and energy have been able to kind of pull someone out from a vehicle that's moving towards them, drag someone out of a burning building, but afterwards they become very depleted, very de-energized and very exhausted. And this is what that sort of flop state is. So what that means in terms of your teams and team behaviors and some of the things you might see is siloed working. So when we are in that protection mode and we don't trust others, we close ranks and we move back into and retreat into the safety of our teams. We'll start to hide behind our jargon, use more protection. So in a sense, anything that involves collaboration or working outside of our normal patterns, our normal team rules, we won't be very comfortable with. So as an example of this, we've been working with a client who wanted to create new product to meet the demands and the changes that have gone on through lockdown and as we sort of shifted and pivoted to meet this new world. And what they found was that the team that was working on new stuff had this new way of working, this new way of being, and this new culture. And the team that had been maintaining BAU had the old way of working. And what they were finding was now that they were trying to integrate these new products and have a shared way of working, that the two teams were, or the two sides of the organization were very entrenched and didn't want to work together very well. They had competing priorities, they had competing rules, and they both kind of felt that their way was the best and they weren't listening to each other. They were bombarding the conversation and they were in this very high distrust level. So what the group coaching enabled them to do was to bring them together, to think about benefits from both sides and to find a way forward and a shared way of working. Another thing that a lot of our clients have been talking about is this sort of shifting of teams. And so there are quite a few people who are now new to management or are managing new people as sort of teams have been moved, people have gone off and things have changed. And so when a manager or leader is feeling uncomfortable, what they will often do is increase the amount of control and they will do more micromanaging. There will be less listening to others, more controlling of what's going on, more interrupting. And so what we did with one client was we brought together all of the individuals who managed or led teams, whether this was as a direct line manager or through that kind of dotted line responsibilities. And we got them to think about what's the best way to manage and lead, what practices work well, and what did we want to see. And what was really interesting was by bringing this group of people together, the people who were more controlling were able to see some of the benefits and ways of being slightly more relaxed. And those who maybe needed to dial up some of the direction that they gave and maybe some of the stronger feedback to others, they were able to see what was being done on this other side. So actually what this did was it leveled off that ways of working from across the organization, so there was a shared sense. One of our kind of larger clients that we work with, they found that during lockdown, their teams had moved from a space of confidence in terms of seizing the initiative, making decisions, into retreating into sort of very permission-seeking behaviours. So quite often what happens when our emotions are spiked and we are feeling uncertain, we go internal, we move into that sort of narrative space of the story about what's going on things rather than listening. And that means that quite often we don't hear what people are saying because we're not really listening. There's a lot of misunderstanding, a lot of distrust between what I'm thinking, what your intention might be, and a lot of self-doubt. And so what this client found was that their teams were slowing down in terms of the amount of work they were doing. The conversations were very derailing. And so what we did is we brought people together to explore how it feels working in uncertainty and how much information you need to make a decision and how you can go about feeling safe making a decisions when there are unknowns. So this was, I think, very helpful in exploring some of the behaviours, giving people an understanding about why they are feeling the way they are feeling and helping people to move forwards. So I want you to just kind of have a think about what are the key challenges that are facing you, and also what are you finding most difficult to resolve. So where we feel coaching comes in is it works at the level of thinking. So coaching offers that kind of professional development, self-reflection, accountability, but it also works at that space of our ideas and what's at the base of our sort of fundamental thinking about things. So when you shift that mindset and that attitude, that can start to change how we feel about things, which then changes our behavior and ultimately changes our outputs. And I think a lot of what's happening for teams and individuals at the moment isn't just what is going on the surface. It's more about the story that they're telling themselves, the story about the rules they have to follow, what is okay, what isn't okay, what this all means. And so coaching helps to work at that level of thinking to give people a way of reframing, of rethinking about things, and of finding ways forwards. And one of the questions I often say to people is that true? Where's your evidence for that? And actually getting people to just unpick their thinking and where it's coming from can be very liberating in terms of them seeing possibilities and opportunities and ways forwards. So the coaching credits itself that we've designed are incredibly flexible, because what we've done is we've enabled you to think about, where is the challenge in my organization and whereabouts do I need that support? Do I need that at leadership level to think about strategic change? Do I need it more on a one-to-one level for significant individuals who are either struggling, who have got a pivotal role in the change, or do I need it for a collection of people who have a shared sort of issue that they want to work on? And what we have noticed in working in this way is that if you are to put change into multiple areas of your organization at the same time, so if you work at either end of the hierarchy, so that's at leadership level and at team level, if you work across all of the teams at that middle manager level, if you're working at strategy and delivery, you can start to get a whole organizational change, because what happens is as one part of the organization starts thinking differently, if other parts of the organization aren't also doing that work, then they can come against that old thinking. Whereas if everyone is beginning to think about how we can do things differently, it sort of moves forward that opportunity for change and that possibility thinking much further. The other thing, as I've sort of alluded to in some of the examples I've given, is when you work with a team, when you bring people together in that sort of group coaching environment, so whether that's people that normally work together or people that don't, it builds this sense of shared understanding, shared voice, shared experiences. It builds new connections. Some of our clients have said really interesting things like, well, now I know people in these other areas, so I feel comfortable about going and talking to them. There's been some innovation that's come out from some of the organizations we've worked with, where people in different departments that wouldn't normally talk to each other now have friendships that they've built, connections that they've built, and they're beginning to innovate and sort of trust their ideas and trust their suggestions, whereas previously they would have stayed silent because they felt really uncomfortable working with those technical experts. And then with that sort of one-to-one coaching element, whenever you bring a group together to do group coaching, sometimes there's somebody who's struggling or falling further behind, or something bubbles up that's really personal to them, that's kind of a sticking point. So it gives them an outlet to have that private conversation and give them the mental movement they need. So I hope this has been really helpful in explaining what's been going on with our brains, about why we're so passionate about coaching credits and why we think they can be helpful. What I'd really like you to do is to consider booking a free discovery call, either with me or with Simon, to kind of go through what the challenges are in your business and to see if coaching credits are the right solution for you and how they might be able to unlock different ways of thinking and different behaviours in your organisation. So thank you so much for listening, and I hope to speak to you soon.